all started in Tasmania's Parliament House. Valerie and I were enjoying our annual holiday when we noticed a tiger-like creature on the Tasmanian Arms. I was a bit sceptical about it, but Valerie assured me there was such an animal. Anyway, it had made us both very curious, so we decided to find out some more about it. Valerie thought the museum would be a logical place to start asking questions, and I agreed. But that was easier said than done with my limited knowledge of Hobart streets. Anyway, we finally got our bearings with a little assistance, and that's where we went.
The Thylacine, or the tiger as you'd call him, has been creating quite a lot of interest lately. But I wouldn't be prepared to give a definite answer about his future. This model will give you some idea of his proportions and size. And we'll start the tail of the tiger right there, because it's an interesting one, and it's actually an extension of the backbone. The enormous feet carried him great distances when he ran down his prey to a state of exhaustion. Then the massive jaws consumed the meat, for he's a blood feeder. Did you know that the Thylacine was a member of the marsupial group?
You mean they carry their young in a pouch, like kangaroos?
Yes, that's right, like so many of the other Australian animals. There's an old film of the Thylacine which was taken about 40 years ago. Would you like to see it? This was taken in the Hobart Zoo and could possibly be our last look at the Thylacine. Notice the wide stripes on the rump. That's why early settlers referred to him commonly as the tiger. Not a lot is known about him because when the Thylacine was plentiful, settlers were generally interested in furthering their sheep growing, and as a killer, his extermination was of the utmost importance. Mating takes place in the summer, and the 3 or 4 young have a pouch life of about 4 months. After that, they run with the mother and hide while she hunts. About 80 years ago, the government put a very high price on his head, and then the story changed dramatically.
Well, that was very interesting, Dr. Bryden. But is it true that some people think it may not be extinct after all?
Well, the possible future of the Thylacine could well be wrapped up in its past. And the man to tell us its history is Dr. Guiler of the University of Tasmania.
So, Dr. Guiler, we still don't know whether the Thylacine still exists.
We must remember that the Thylacine is recognized as one of the rarest animals in the world. And I personally believe that it does still exist. His sheep killing made him an outlaw in the 1880s when the government authorized a high bounty of £1 a head. It was in 1888 the first bounty was paid. The last was paid in 1910.
Have you any idea where you think the tiger still exists?
Well, I'm convinced that one was killed up here at Sandy Cape about 2 years ago. And it's quite possible that they exist down here in the southwestern part of the island, roaming all through this wild country. During the bounty period, there were more men in this area than there are today, but from there, few captures were reported. In 1852, tigers were widely distributed throughout the state, being caught in all types of country. However, the greatest numbers were found in drier areas. Examination shows that they were taken in open forest with rocky outcrops nearby, where they would hide in the daytime. Only 10 years later, the agricultural pastures were comparatively free of the menace, with reported killings of sheep coming only from more remote areas such as the Central Highlands. About 1909, they suddenly became very scarce. The decline was very rapid and occurred simultaneously throughout the state. It could be that they retreated into the more treacherous terrain of Tasmania, but yet this area, with its almost impenetrable horizontal scrub and other types of vegetation, could hardly be the habitat of an animal who hunts by smell, as does the thylacine. One very plausible theory points to a distemper-like plague, and that this disease, not the hunters, drove out these animals. Whatever the cause of his decline, I still think that we will find him somewhere in the west and southwestern areas of the state. Down here, perhaps, an area where men are seldom seen, the tiger may find a place in which he can rehabilitate himself.
What a fascinating thought. Thank you very much, Dr. Guiler. We'll have to say goodbye now. We're on our way to the north.
On your way, call in and have a talk to Mont Turner at Westbury Zoo. He hasn't got a tiger to show you, but he has a very good collection of other native animals well worth seeing.
That will be our first stop. Thank you very much, Dr. Guiler.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have a very pleasant trip.
Goodbye,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Guiler. Thank you.
Bye.
Dr. Guiler in Hobart suggested we drop in to see you, Mr. Turner. He told us you'd actually seen a Tasmanian tiger.
Yes, I have seen a tiger a long time ago, about 55 or 56 years ago.
And do you think there are any alive today?
I don't think there's any tigers left now, because years ago when I was about, they used to come out and kill sheep all over the place. Well, there's never any sheep killed with tigers now, and I think they're all gone. I haven't got any tigers in the zoo, but if you care to come around with me, I've got a good collection of all Australian animals and Tasmanian animals. So, if you like to come around, I'll show them to you.
Mont Turner then proceeded to give us a personally conducted tour of his zoo. The Tasmanian devil was our first call, and Mont told us there's not another animal like him, and he's found only in Tasmania. The name devil is no mistake. He's one of the meanest looking animals I've seen, and I know that I wouldn't have my hand within reach of his razor-sharp teeth. He's a scavenger who was said to trail the hunting tigers, cleaning up what they left behind. He's also banished from the nest in captivity because he eats the young. In the next door cage, Mont had a female devil with young in the pouch. The babies are 3.5 months old, and we were told they'll stay in the pouch for at least another month. In a few weeks' time, the fur starts to grow, on top of the head first and then down on the body. Mont then produced another surprise package. Baby devils, but a bit older than the last lot. Their mother had died, so it was Mont's job to act as nursemaid. He thought it would be a good idea if Valerie tried her hand at it. She got quite an enthusiastic response from this one. Even the Cape Barren goose seemed to think this was something worth looking at. The native cats seemed quite well behaved, but Mont told us they were very nervous animals. They produce large families, as many as 25, but only managed to rear about 6 of them. She's got a small pouch, so it's a tight squeeze for the 6. She's often confused with the tiger cat, but we notice the spots go right down the tail, whereas on the native cat they don't. The wedge-tailed eagle is quite a bird, in fact the biggest in Australia. A 6-foot wingspan is not uncommon in his family. A different kind of bird, but nonetheless dangerous, is the owl. As Mont said, anything thereafter is lucky to get away because they make no noise at all in flight. We then saw one of Mont's most admired animals, the golden brush possum. His beautiful golden coat doesn't mean he's an albino, though, just a rare specimen. He spends most of his time on the ground, but a relative of his, the ringtail possum, it seems, is just the opposite. Another relative is the pygmy possum. This little fellow, although only about 3 inches long, is 6 years old, and like his larger relatives, is a marsupial. If you've seen this creature shuffling across the road, you'll know what it is. There's nothing else that looks like the echidna in Tasmania. It's an ant-eating monotreme, wrongly called porcupine by a lot of people. Most people are amazed when they hear that the female lays her egg and manages to get it into her pouch, usually without any breakages. Mont then let us in on a little secret of his. He knows that in a small creek close by his zoo, there's usually to be found a platypus. And providing that we were quiet enough, we should manage to get a glimpse of him. But today, we were lucky. The platypus and the devils were the highlight of our visit to Westbury, but as we walked back, I couldn't help wondering if the Tasmanian tiger might be somewhere over there in the Western Tiers. it still remains a big mystery. But yet, looking at Tasmania's mountainous and partly unexplored country, there's still a hope that the tiger has found some secluded valley in which he can start his life again. Whatever the answer may be, I know that I will always have a yearning to come back and walk amongst Tasmania's mountains. And there'll always be that feeling that perhaps over the next hill or around the next bend of the river, there is to be found the Tasmanian tiger.